Bucknutters, welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, July 20th, 2016. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Bucknuts contributor Jonah Booker. Jay Book, we're obviously just 2 days away from Friday Night Lights. Unfortunately for the Buckeyes, we learned yesterday that Cam Akers will not be making the trip to Columbus this Friday. What do you make of that, Jonah?
It's a blow for Ohio State. It's been a while since Akers been on campus. He's visited several schools in the South. Our own Alex Gleitman was on the board, said he believes right now that it's going to be Tennessee or LSU with Ohio State fading. So it's a blow. There's no way to shake it. He's a premier five-star running back. You would have loved to have him on campus with the other commits and some of the other targets, especially hanging out with Tate Martell and Grimes and Tyjon Lindsey.
I think with J.K. Dobbins in this class, if he stays in this class, that's all the Buckeyes need. Now, it would be great to get, if we're going to be greedy, it would be great to have Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins. But I just want to get your thoughts on that. Agree or disagree that as long as they retain J.K. Dobbins, the Buckeyes are going to be just fine at running back in this class?
I think they're going to be fine. Dobbins, he's a stud his own self. But I said on the boards that I would have loved to see Cam Akers in this class with Dobbins because essentially what you got there is an inside-outside thunder and lightning type of combo. But with it being a tremendously small class, scholarships tight, I'm very content with J.K. Dobbins. That kid is a freak athlete. He tested off the charts at the Nike opening. Just get him in the class, keep him in the fold, and call it a wrap if you can't get Akers.
And we always know there's, at least a couple commitments that come out of Friday Night Lights and not just down the road. I mean, I still say the reason they got Ben Victor is because of Friday Night Lights 2 years ago. They really lay the groundwork well ahead of time. But as far as people actually committing this Friday, we see it every year. There's going to be a couple commitments, and I don't think this year's going to be any different. Whether from the 2017 class or even the 2018 class, who's on commit watch for you this weekend?
I would say Amir Reed. He's supposed to be committing on his birthday. It's great that Ohio State gets the last visit there. For him, I think he's going to give the coaches a silent if he hasn't already on Friday and then announce on Saturday on his birthday. I wouldn't be surprised if Grimes pulled the trigger, even though him and Tyjon Lindsey both have very close commitment dates in late August. From everything that we've heard, Grimes has already told the coaches what they want to hear, as well as Tyjon Lindsey has already told the coaches what they want to hear. So having those guys on campus is a pretty big deal. I'm not going to say I would be shocked if one of those two guys committed, but I would be thoroughly surprised. So Amir Reed would be my guy who I say wraps up his recruitment this weekend.
Yeah, looking at those four guys, Trevon Grimes, Tyjon Lindsey, Chase Young, Amir Reed, I think they're all going to be Buckeyes. Do you concur? I
absolutely agree. And what a time to be a Buckeye fan. I mean, you're talking about blue chip guys that Ohio State are landing who's on top of their recruiting board. It's one thing to land, some 4 and 5 star guys at any given position, but to be able to land the guys that are absolutely at the top of your recruiting board is sensational. And then
2018 class, eventually they're going to pop the cork on this 2018 class. You think quarterback Emory Jones might be the first one, and just maybe who do you think might be, if not him, who do you think is going to be the first one to commit to Ohio State in their 2018 class?
I think it's going to be Emory Jones, but Tennessee is putting up a heck of a battle right now. Getting him back on campus is essential. At one time it looked like he was going to go ahead and pull the trigger for the Buckeyes after he camped there this summer. Then he went to Tennessee, and they kind of pulled even there. A lot of people think that Ohio State's being negative recruited by Tennessee, essentially stating that look at the Ohio State depth chart at quarterback with Tate Martell coming in and Danny Clark, and then you also have Burrow, who's on scholarship, and then Dwayne Haskins and J.T. Barrett, all with guys with multiple years of eligibility. So a lot of people have been kind of throwing that in Emory Jones's ear, as well as the potential of playing in the South. But let's see how this upcoming visit comes, because if it goes really well, I could see him pulling the trigger and being the leader of that 2018 class.
Switching gears from recruiting, the summer was just going too smooth for Ohio State, I guess. I was thinking about this past weekend. I'm glad I didn't put anything out there. I'd be probably the one to blame for this. But I was thinking things are just going too smooth this summer. And then, of course, on Monday, the shoe drops with Bri'onte Dunn getting kicked off the team. What is your reaction to the Bri'onte Dunn situation, Jay Book?
News broke when Alex broke the news on the board. The first thing that came to my mind was, are you kidding me? And it's not essentially a reaction of, oh my goodness, Dunn got in trouble, but the fact that the guy finally had his shot to really make a name for himself. He had a shot to be the starting running back at Ohio State. He sit behind two guys who are playing in the NFL, Carlos Hyde and Ezekiel Elliott. Dunn never really lived up to the expectations. A lot of people considered him a bust. Ohio State was in a huge recruiting battle with Michigan. In fact, Urban Meyer wanted Dunn so bad that it came to the point to where he was going back and forth with Michigan and Ohio State that Urban Meyer had to put his foot in the sand to tell him get on board or get off board, because they wanted him to be a Buckeye. And for him to mess up his senior year, it's sad. Same situation with Rod Smith. Two guys who are extremely talented, two guys who had all the potential in the world but could never get out of their own way. And, at this point, you hope Dunn can right his wrongs, maybe get his career back on track. And you never know what will surface. Who would have thought Rod Smith would still be playing in the NFL? The way things are shaking out in the NFL with the Cowboys, you might actually see a Buckeye backfield in Dallas with Ezekiel Elliott and Rod Smith with Darren McFadden on the shelf. So hopefully Dunn can get back on track and, maybe go to a smaller school and get a crack at it, depending on if any type of charges with his potential domestic dispute with the local police is settled.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. We were reluctant to really put much out there. We were hearing is because, he got in a domestic dispute with his girlfriend last night. 10 TV and the Columbus Dispatch both reported that, everything we were hearing, that he allegedly struck his girlfriend. And we're only hearing one side of the story. And I will point out, criminal charges have not been filed. And I know a lot of cops, they would not mess around if they had hard evidence that he struck his girlfriend, but they might just be, still getting that evidence. But it doesn't seem like a clear-cut case where they had to immediately book him or anything like that. But at the same time, his girlfriend did get the restraining order, the protective order, I should say. Urban Meyer's not waiting around for due process. He heard enough. And Urban Meyer has a way of finding out what's really going on. I know people will say, what about Carlos Hyde? 3 years ago, Urban initially kicked Carlos Hyde off the team for the incident at the nightclub where he supposedly hit this girl. Turns out he, barely kind of touched her in the face. And then Urban reduced that year-long suspension to 3 games, which when people saw the video, even 3 games seemed like that was too much of a punishment for Carlos Hyde. So a lot of Buckeye fans, Jonah, are wondering, could Bri'onte Dunn still get back on the team? I don't know the answer to that. Let's just spitball here. I seriously doubt it. I'm not ruling anything out, but I do find it intriguing that criminal charges have not been filed. But, if there's any truth to this, it goes without saying I don't want any piece of Bri'onte Dunn on this team, but I do want to hear his side of the story, and I want to see how this plays out. Just your thoughts, if you think there's any chance he could get back on the team from what you're hearing.
I don't think he's coming back, Dave. And you mentioned Carlos Hyde, and another guy, similar situation with Storm Klein several years ago. And he had a domestic dispute, and Urban Meyer, everybody was trying to figure out what was going on, and Urban Meyer left the door open for him and Carlos Hyde as they were suspended indefinitely until further notice. Well, Bri'onte Dunn, he's blatantly dismissed from the team. Now, you can also look at Bri'onte Dunn and say maybe this guy has cashed in his chips, early on in his career, and maybe he was on a one-strike policy. You never know, because remember, Dunn got in trouble early on in his career as well, and a lot of people thought he was going to be off the team, but he was able to get out of that. But right now, the way things are looking, I don't think he's going to be back on the team, and I 100% agree with you. If the charges are true or the accusations are true, then I don't want any part of Dunn being on this football team, and you have to apply Urban Meyer for doing what's right. with the program and just in society in general is just doing the right thing altogether.
Yeah, you put your hands on a woman, you're no man. You need to be off the team, and, you know, hopefully he can get his life straightened out. And if this is true, again, I don't want to impugn him, but, you know, if the evidence that Urban Meyer knows about is good enough, then that's good enough for me. I don't want any part of Bri'onte Dunn on this team if these charges are true. We'll see what happens, though. Before I let you go, I did a couple of content galleries this week, and I know people. I don't like for those that are wondering that think maybe here at Bucknuts we like to run photo galleries. I don't like reading photo galleries on other sites. So what we try to do is we do the photo galleries where you have to give the slideshows, but we actually put a lot of text into it. It's like each one of those is actually a story. It's not like one sentence. It's like 4, 5, 6 paragraphs. So I did a couple of different pieces. I did one yesterday, or 2 days ago, I should say, on what I call the JV division of the Big Ten, ranking the Big Ten's coaches from worst to best in the West Division, or the JV division. And then yesterday, I did the East Division. And I want to get your thoughts on this. There's a couple of really tough debates. We all know Urban Meyer's the best coach in the Big Ten, not just in the East, in the entire Big Ten. Let's start in the West, though. Would you take Pat Fitzgerald, or would you take Kirk Ferentz, or even somebody else as the best coach in the West Division?
I would say I would take Kirk Ferentz for the simple fact that he's been there, he's done that. He's had a solid career at Iowa to where he doesn't necessarily get the highly ranked kids. Northwestern doesn't get the highly ranked kids, and everybody understands the academic stringencies that Northwestern has in place for them. But if you're looking at rankings, Iowa and Northwestern are both around the same ballpark. Pat Fitzgerald, he's a solid coach. To me, I personally think he's a little overhyped. Iowa, you have to be impressed with what they've done. Kirk Ferentz essentially said, we're not recruiting the state of Florida because we can't get any kids there. You're talking about one of the hotbed programs, the hotbed high school recruiting nation one of the hotbed recruiting spots in Florida. And Ferentz, he's still out there trucking along. I heard Phil Steele saying that he believes that Iowa's going to win the Big Ten West, so I would give the nod to Kirk Ferentz.
And then the real intriguing one, and by the way, for those that didn't read the story, I did pick Pat Fitzgerald as number one over Kirk Ferentz, but I can see both sides of the argument. My argument was, you know, if you just look at their resumes, yes, Kirk Ferentz's resume is more impressive than Pat Fitzgerald, but I think Pat Fitzgerald does more with less than Kirk Ferentz does. Like, I think if Pat Fitzgerald was at Iowa, and whatever you want to say about Iowa, they have better resources than Northwestern and lower admissions as far as, you know, academic requirements. I think Pat Fitzgerald could accomplish at Iowa what Kirk Ferentz has. I'm not sure if Kirk Ferentz could accomplish at Northwestern what Pat Fitzgerald has, but I see both sides of the argument.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah, it could go either way. But I want to leave you with this. Number 2 coach in the Big Ten East. You taking Jim Harbaugh or Mark Dantonio? If you're starting a team, you're an AD, you're taking over a team, you have to hire a coach for your team. Are you taking Jim Harbaugh or Mark Dantonio?
That's easy. I'm taking Jim Harbaugh. I mean, Jim Harbaugh is a win-now type of coach. I respect everything that Mark and Dantonio has done at Michigan State, and he feels a hard-nosed, gritty football team, but I think the Big Ten is their ceiling at Michigan State, But with Jim Harbaugh, the guy can recruit. He's weird. He's quirky. He wears people out. But at the same time, he really can get the best out of players. He doubled Michigan's win total from when he took over to Brady Hoke. And if I was an athletic director and I'm trying to win now, I'm definitely taking Jim Harbaugh. He's going to be able to rebrand the Michigan football program, which was stale. Mark Dantonio, he's a 9 to 10 win consistent football coach, but when it comes to winning the national championship, I like my chances with Jim Harbaugh. We saw what Mark Dantonio did with that team last year when they ran into Alabama, and those guys, they looked like they had no place on the field with Alabama. They were too slow, not athletic enough, but good enough to win the Big Ten, and I think that's their ceiling.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would take Harbaugh over Dantonio. Even with Harbaugh's craziness, I would take Harbaugh over Dantonio, as much as I hate to admit that, but I just have to be real about it. And I've already taken some flack in my story from on the message board from both Ohio State fans and Michigan State fans, so I'm getting ganged up on. But Michigan fans are, of course, defending that pick. But it's tough to defend Michigan. But I just think Jim Harbaugh, when you look at what he's done everywhere he's been, San Diego, an FCS school. Then he goes to Stanford. He turns the bullied into the bully. He takes over a 49ers team that was in disarray. They're in the NFC Championship the first year. He takes over the second year and then the Super Bowl. First year at Michigan, he goes 10-3. I mean, now their schedule was weak last year, and I get that. And he got blown out by Ohio State. But still, did anybody pick Michigan to win 10 games last year? I didn't. So, yeah, we definitely concur about Jim Harbaugh over Mark Dantonio. And we're going to say nothing else nice about Jim Harbaugh for the rest of maybe the entire college football season if we can help ourselves. Thank you very much to Jonah Booker. I appreciate it, Jay Book. Great stuff out of you as always. And thank you to the listeners out there. Again, just 2 days away from Friday Night Lights. Bucknuts will be all hands on deck at the Horseshoe this Friday. If you're coming out, I said on the show on Monday it's free parking. It usually has been free parking. I've never had to pay to park. I've never brought a parking pass. But just to clarify that, there's been some talk that occasionally people have to pay $5 to park. So make sure you have a 5-spot on you at least to come and pay to park. But admission is free. It starts around 6:30, but I would advise not to get there until about 7:30. It doesn't really get cooking until about 7:30, maybe a little after that. It goes to about 11. So have fun, bring the family out, and if you're a recruiting fan, you're going to absolutely love it. Thanks again to Jonah Booker, and thanks to the listeners for tuning in to the show. I appreciate it. I hope everybody has a great day. Let's hear some Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.